So, my name is Kshal Aideron. I am the CEO of Eve Rookies, a public community, and I'm also sitting on the CSM19. I started playing back in January 2020 after trying to play twice before. First time, never got undocked, didn't even see an undock button or way to get into a ship or anything. Rage quit. Husband kept playing. GM actually gave him some ships. Second time was around when alphas came out, and I tried playing again. I did manage to get undocked. I didn't manage to get into a ship. Something killed my pod. I rage quit. Went back to Elder Scrolls Online. Third time, I had a developer start working with me at a client, and he was bragging about playing, the world's hardest MMO, and I'm sarcastic, spreadsheets in space. And he was like, yeah, how did you know? Well, I started hearing a lot about Eve at work. I thought I was going to be very clever and introduce the developer to my husband, who was out in Nullsec at this time, and, maybe create a bond and they could talk to each other and I wouldn't have to listen about it. Yeah, I was wrong. I listened to it at work, I listened to it when I got home, and, half of my life was spent listening to Eve, so you can't beat them, join them. I fired it up in January 2020. The NPE at that time was pretty okay. I ended up in the ship. Ara woke me up, and we went and started killing pirates. So I was in. Within the week, I was out in Tama throwing frigates at other people and feeding horribly. And within 2 weeks to a month, I went out on my first MPSI roam with Redemption Road. If you remember who Greygal is, well, that's what lured me in. And I hook, line, sinker, and here I am 5 years later. So my community is now just over 3,100 people. Public started out as an encouraging community, and now we are a little bit of everything. Just a really great community that helps new players coming in. We do a lot of fleets that they can join and keep the activity up and keep them engaged in the game. Yes, Greygal is a legend. So then you probably want to know what my 3 campaign points are for CSM19. First one, first and foremost, and always is, and even if I don't make CSM19, will be my drive in Eve, working with new players. New players are so incredibly important. They are the lifeblood to this game, and half of the time they just, struggle, and they take that plunge and we never see them again. We need to stop that. We need to make sure they get into different parts of the game and stay engaged and stay in so they can become bitter vets as well. Second is community. Community has always been a big part of what I do in Eve, but in this past year, it became even a bigger passion. Especially when we were around 2,500 people. That seems like forever ago. Without this community, we would have lost so many new people. I don't have the stats in front of me, but I believe that we have done over 500 fleets now for this year alone, and it's almost double of what we did last year. We have put over, I want to say, 1,500 people through the fleets, which is double from last year. And we have a community that 88 leaders in my community, so those are FCs, JFCs, ambassadors, teachers that run it. I really haven't done a whole lot in running it in the last couple months. Other people pick up the mantle and have run with it. We have picked up a whole new community, which brought in about 500 people, if not more. And it's been absolutely staggering. So community and giving communities like ours tools, MPSI community, it's just so important to give tools and recognition within the game. I sat down for CCP and figured out that there's over 52 public communities. Did you know that? Well, they didn't know that. So it's like, yeah, they deserve to be recognized as well. And the third one is inclusion. So Eve Rookies has a very strict no toxicity rule. We have very strong core values that people before boxes. I'll get to multi-boxing later in the interview, but people before boxes. We try to keep most of our activities new player and alpha friendly. And we don't tolerate any racism, sexism, ableism, homophobia, transphobia, all those horrible things from the outside world. We just don't let them into our community. We are probably stricter than some people would like, but we don't even allow, casual gamer memes or locker room memes or anything like that. We want everyone to feel included and safe within our community. And, communities that allow this, that's fine. But I also talk to people in these communities and they have to do a lot of policing. We've banned maybe 10 people in over 3.5 years. So that's when you start this type of community, everyone agrees with it, and you lead from the top down, this is the type of community that you grow. So I would like to, as I said in my thread, I would like to bottle up what we have done with eRookies and sell it to everybody else. I know that it's going to be a hard sell. I know that everyone doesn't believe that it's a problem. I know that some people just don't want to deal with it. They rather just ignore it and pretend it doesn't exist. But it has to start somewhere. So I've had a chance to talk to a lot of people already. A lot of good has already been done. So now it needs to carry on. So those are my three, is new player, experience, community, and inclusivity. So then we come to, in my interviews that I've been doing, I have a section about new player experience. And of course, I'm very new player oriented, so this is where it came up with, and of course the community is. So what do you believe is the biggest challenge is facing new players in EVE today? It's figuring out where to go once you get into the game. So you have this great MPE with this great story, and you kind of go learn things. Maybe not in the way that I would have laid it out, maybe not in the way that you would have laid it out, but it plays on current MMO standards. It's very pretty, strong characters. You go through, and then it kind of just leaves off at mining. But it does take you into the career missions. So once you get done with the career missions, then you have the air career missions, not to be confusing between, the two. The air career missions, as you know, are the things like go out and destroy your ship, join a corp, go do faction warfare, and whatnot. But it doesn't really guide you. You just kind of get these opportunities as you do things. Unless you actually open it up and you look and say, oh, well, I want to, complete this achievement, or, oh, I want to complete that achievement. Really, once the last career mission is done, people don't know what to do. If they go to Reddit, they're often told to go do the Sisters of Eve, epic arc, or maybe go join faction warfare. But they actually have to know to get to Reddit to ask the question. There isn't any guidance in-game to get them to the next step. And I know that CCP really wants to try to bridge the gap by getting people into faction warfare, but I've actually enlisted a character in faction warfare. And even I, someone who's been playing for 5 years, had to ask, what do I do next? There really isn't any guidance that, I need to go join my faction's Discord and then I can kind of be guided through there, or go to the front line. It's just kind of like it just dumped me there. Or so, yeah, I do think that getting that engagement in game is probably one of the number one biggest challenges that new players face. And as far as improving player retention, I do honestly believe that it is community. CCP has done a lot of studies and a lot of surveys, had experts come up, and it all keeps pointing to there's this magic moment that when a new player engages with the community, and it could be, anyone that's out there. It could be the person that melts their face off in hour 1, or it could be, that person that kills their heron out in a wormhole. Think about your first interaction in EVE with another player. It probably has something to do with why you're still here today. So we need to figure out how to organically make these happen. It could, and Twitch is a community, and it's that engagement. It's all about player-to-player engagement, not with engagement necessarily with NPCs. Although, World of Warcraft, Elder Scrolls Online, Final Fantasy, you do have those interactions that keep with NPCs that keep people in the game. But for EVE, it's kind of special. It's other players. And, how do we send new players and teach them how to find people to interact with? That is going to be the big question. And if you want to know a big part of what I have done with my CSM19 year is have these conversations. Unfortunately, it's not going to be anything that I can show. It's not something in game that I can say, hey, I have had my hands on this. It's conversations for the future. So if these conversations continue, then I do think that we're going to reach an aha moment and we'll get somewhere. But right now we just have to have these conversations and keep them going. And then, when's the last time I ran through the MPE? Last week. I was making a new character for a video, and I had to run through the MPE because I needed it at a certain point. I have a lot of characters like this. We won't talk about how many I have. It's embarrassing. So, as I said, community, it officially or unofficially, I think unofficially I have close to 60 or 70. I want to think 46 of them are Omega right now. Like I said, it's embarrassing. I'll tell a funny story about that after this interview. I may have one for every channel, yes. So when we loop back to community being so important in EVE, my definition of community is a group of people who are trying to accomplish something in the game. And a community could be a corporation, or it could be your alliance identity, because some, alliances out there, they have corporations because they have to, and then, the alliance on top of it, so people identify as that alliance. Communities can also be headless. I call EVE Rookies a headless community. We do have a corp in game, but it's for our alts. It's not for normal players to join. And that's because all of our fleets are public and free for anybody to join, no matter who they are or what corps they belong to. So, yeah, community can be as big or as small as you want within EVE, but all the players are always going to have a common denominator, common goal, a common love of something. And then I don't think I really have to go into, what my stance on toxicity is in EVE, since this is kind of like my current passion project, is trying to eliminate it as much as possible. There's no need for toxicity. And like I say, just to reiterate, toxicity isn't the ganking, it's not the PvP, it's not, the rivalry between two groups, it's not the salt that's mined but it could be. Depends on how far you're pushed. Toxicity is all that real life stuff coming into the game. It's the doxing. I've had someone try to dox me before. So it's the stuff that you don't need. I actually have a player within my community that does things out of game, but won't come into game because of the way she was treated when people found out she was trans. I have people who are disabled gamers who have been made fun of because of the way they have to play. I myself have gotten lots of lovely messages from people about being female or, about my looks or things like that. This is just not necessary. I have thick skin. I have really thick skin, but a lot of people don't, or a lot of people aren't mentally in the space to deal with this type of thing. When you say mean things to people, you never know what they're going through. You could be pushing them over the edge, and there's just no room for that. Absolutely no room for that. And that's why Eve Rookies is always going to be a safe space. And we will ruthlessly stamp it out. And yeah, as far as what I do when I come across toxicity, now, if somebody calls, says that I need a horror drone for, my Logi, I'm probably not going to speak out on it. This is kind of picking and choosing. How much of a battle do I really want? But I guarantee that if people are posting racist memes or, casual gamer things, I'm probably going to speak out. And if I find it in game, I will report it. And, as a CSM, I can have it escalated up. So I have, and I will continue in the future. There's just no place for it. We don't do it. A matter of fact, funny enough, I think in my profile picture on Twitch there, I still have my picture in my unicorn onesie. I actually had someone directly attack me because I was a 40-year-old wearing a unicorn onesie. I mean, of all the things that you could possibly, if you know me, attack me about, you attack my unicorn onesie. I mean, come on, it's senseless. So now we're going to go over the CSM questions. I asked all the candidates, and I will ask Switch 4 tonight, these questions for the last time in this week and a half of madness, about what if you got onto the CSM. These questions I actually designed since, I'm sitting on the CSM. I kind of know what to expect. I know what is talked about. So I kind of wanted to get an idea of what the candidates thought, kind of, a little bit of their headspace. And the first one is you get onto the CSM, and in the very first meeting, it is revealed to you what the next expansion is. So this actually is drawn from my experience. Remember, new player experience, community, and inclusion. That's what I ran on last year. That's what I'm running on this year. And we find out that the expansion is about nullsec. I'm literally sitting there on this call wondering, why did you pick me, CCP? Really, why did you pick me if the next expansion is going to be about nullsec? What is my purpose? Why didn't you pick, someone who isn't solve null instead? Well, for those CSM who answered that there's more that you can do, there really is. I mean, when you think about it, I don't live in solve null, but I do visit null. I'm a PvP FC, and I take rookie roams out. So I know about the landscape. I know about problems. When the CSM started talking about projection, I knew, what the conversation was and I could give input. Now, the solve stuff, I learned a lot. I really have learned a lot this year. But unfortunately, I didn't have a whole lot of input. But when we got to home fronts, had a lot of input. When we got to court projects, had a lot of input. When we got to quality of life stuff, I had a lot of input. When we talked about security, and, I have players who use assistive devices. So if you don't know, assistive devices are things like voice activation, or maybe having to use one or two mouse clicks in order to do things on the screen. And sometimes there's macros, roped into those so players can play like the rest of us, or try to. So my questions, of course, were surrounding this and asking about, I have these players, here are their user cases. What happens if they, get detected as botting? So I got to actually dive into that and know what's going to happen if it ever comes up. So that was really cool. What else? Yes, I feel really bad about nullsec. So there's so many things that I've actually been able to talk about and interact with CCP. And of course, we're not always going and talking to CCP as groups either. I definitely get pulled off to the side or get conversations about new player stuff all the time. They got all my stats about all of my fleets and how, Discord is interacting, new players are interacting, which is a gold mine for them. So yeah, if your play style isn't like in the forefront coming up, don't despair. CCP is picking you for a reason if you're a pick, and you probably can offer something if players want you there. The next one was about your gameplay getting changed. Now, I've only been playing 5 years in January of next year, and I've already had several things get nerfed. When I think I was 2 months into the game, I started scouting for the MPSI fleets I was on. And not that many months later, I want to think it was probably, October, November of that year, that they went ahead and nerfed nullified interceptors, and you had to use the module instead. I hate that module. I've never learned how to properly use it. And for me, only a few things for me. Yeah, so I rarely scout these days. Because I just don't enjoy it anymore. I found other things to do. I found FCing. Just step it up a level. What else have they... I think the funniest nerf was the Marauders, nerfing the speed. Mostly because I got to hear my incursion leadership kind of yell. I mean, they're still fast enough. Don't worry. The 3 AU or whatever they lost, whatnot. And I couldn't stand up and say, you can't you can't do this because, I have a few people that are not going to be as speedy as they were before. So yeah, I've definitely had things that are changed. And of course, I made this question thinking about the skyhooks. So when you know why things got nerfed or changed or whatnot, sometimes you may not always agree with it. Sometimes you do think it's a good idea, but it's going to happen. And you have to navigate that as CSM. With the wormhole, it did change the way a little bit that we do our public wormhole fleets. We adapted and we overcame. And that's what I told, the leadership having to do with the wormholes. I couldn't say we don't need to do something about this. ISK faucet. just because it's going to ruin the way that we play. We're just small little tiny fraction out of all of EVE. Definitely, mentioned may not be the best way to go about it, but, I couldn't argue against something needing to be changed. So that's always something that you have to think about. And then, of course, anyone can come to me as a CSM. I've had a lot of groups that came to me and viewed me as their CSM that I didn't even know existed. This is how I actually learned about there being more public groups out there than I thought, which was really cool. And I do answer my EVE mail. And then the last one, and I think that it's probably more pertinent now than it was, when I wrote this, because we have now seen a real life example of what happens when you can't navigate it. The question was, players sometimes expect CSM members to fix issues or demand changes from CCP. Have you given any thought on how you're going to balance limitations placed on you as a CSM, like with the NDA, with making sure that the players feel heard? So we'll just let that one sink in a second. It's never worth violating the NDA to make players happy. I wish that it could be a different way. I wish that I could give more information than I can. When we had a couple players constantly taking down the incursion focus for cheapers, it was 6 months. It was maybe even 7 months. I knew at 3 months in that CCP was going to make a change that would help the community a bit. But the only thing that I could say is CCP has heard the information and they're taking this seriously. That was literally the only line that I could give. I couldn't tell them that, they saw my feedback and they're acting on it. I could only give that line. And it was torture. It was absolutely torture. I had people coming to me every day yelling at me because, I wasn't doing my job as CSM. I wasn't representing them. And just telling them that, look, I have explained this situation thoroughly to CCP. Wasn't enough. And you kind of have to weather it because it's not worth violating your NDA for it. And I think that CCP definitely could make the CSM's life a lot easier by being more forthcoming with information. Look, it's like I told somebody on my forum thread, because I had said something and they came out with CCP is actually being toxic, they're gaslighting us. Well, to gaslight, you actually have to have the intent to not tell the truth, and you have to have the malice. What they're doing is just making life harder for everybody. And what sounds better? Let's take scarcity. Scarcity breeds conflict. And be able to put out, a big A4 page on how there's going to be these battles out in nullsec over, different commodities and stuff like that. Or just saying, hey, look, inflation's getting out of control, we have to control it. Which one sounds better? I know for publicity and PR, which one I would choose. I wouldn't choose this one, but, they choose not to take a stance on putting something out for the media outlets and then telling the players, hey, here it is. Yeah, but I think players, if CCP would have explained the reasoning behind scarcity, players wouldn't like it. 100%. Players wouldn't like it. But I think that they would have swallowed the medicine a little bit easier. Same thing for, the changes to the skyhooks. I think that a CCP came out and explained why it was happening. Again, people will be upset that this gameplay that suddenly came out got changed. But I think that CSM would have a much easier job explaining it. So yeah, I whatever it is, if you're thinking about going out for the CSM, don't violate your NDA. It's not worth it. It's just really not worth it. You do the best that you can. You accept the lumps from the players. If you get some really good communities supporting you, it's not as bad. So just think about that a little bit. Moving on to my community questions, one of them was multi-boxing. As I explained it, half of our community multi-boxes. The other half only have one account and maybe even only one character and think that everyone should play that way. So what's my stance? I am a multi-boxer. I don't like it. It is a necessary evil in order to get fleets undocked that otherwise couldn't undock. Remember, I said I have like two halves of brain cells that are kind of warring with each other now? They really don't like multi-boxing. Even though I have a shit ton of accounts, if I ever have 5 logged in, more than 5 logged in, that's something special. One, my computer doesn't like it. I could set it up so it would, but I don't do it. But the other is, like I say, I just don't enjoy it. And if somebody comes along and says, oh, I can lodge you in that incursion fleet for you, I'm docking up and I'm handing over that ship. I guarantee. If I can tune down to what I don't have to multi-box, all the better. And the Claymore will survive. It has a much better survival rate. Whenever I've had to box, I think 4 or 5 boxes at once in an incursion fleet, a Claymore dies. So just remember that. Come out, do our fleets so Claymores don't have to die. But we do have some issues with getting real people in a fleet and doing home fronts, for example. It's very easy. The 5-person multi-box, or the 5-person home fronts are very easy for the multi-boxers to do. Very easy money. And it is frustrating going out and trying to take a fleet and get enough sites to make it worth it. That's the complaint I hear from my FCs all the time, that, you know, we flew around for 2 hours and we only got like 6 sites done. When you compare to, say, incursions, in 2 hours, we can easily get 20 sites done. So trying to keep people engaged and interested is much harder. Now, from what I've heard, I haven't actually done it myself yet, but from what I've heard, the 3-person home fronts are much harder to multi-box. The ISK is a little bit lower, so it's not as worth it. I think that these type of tactics are probably going to be the way that CCP looks at different PvE features that come out in the future. It's kind of like an experimental ground, so I'm really pleased to see that they're tinkering with it and they're trying new things. And I don't know, maybe we will see something new coming down the road. But I think for incursions, multi-boxing isn't a huge issue. There are definitely some multi-boxers in the Vanguard systems, the VG systems, and we have to contest them sometimes. There are some very good ones out there that we will lose to, but there's also some that we will smack alongside the head every single time. You don't usually see multi-boxers doing all of the HQ sites, mostly because a fleet full of 40 people are going to be much more effective. Or if people only have like 1 or 2 boxes that they control at the same time, like TLA. What other PvE content is out there? Mining, if someone wants to have 20 boxes in mine, I don't think that that is the biggest deal in the world. For ganking, I'm not opposed to ganking in the first place. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure on that one. I guess it would have to be, something proposed to me to, with some information, whether, I would, support or not changes to that. At the end of the day, multi-boxers keep CCP afloat, so it's not financially interesting to get rid of them. So people who dream about one player and one player only, I don't think you're ever going to get your way, unfortunately. Next one that I asked people about are skill injectors. I don't think new players, brand new players, I'm talking like within the first 30-day players, really have any business using skill injectors. I'm a new player. Keep that in mind. I'm a relatively new player. So I understand wanting to catch up. I don't think skill injectors are bad things either. EVE Rookies would not be the 3,100 member community that it is today if I didn't have access to skill injectors, 3.5 years ago, over 3.5 years now. We started out as a small Vanguard incursion community, and I was the one who was doing the majority of FCing. And we had the rule at the time because it was such a huge skill sink and not many players had, the boost skills, that in order to FC, you had to be able to fly the booster. Because that one person needed to sit in that ship in order to get out. Much easier to get Logi 5 players than it was to get into that damn booster. I paid my way in. 100% I paid my way in. I still sit in the corner and cry. 3.5 years is still too soon. Hashtag too soon. But with that being said, when I'm actually just screwing around and playing the game, I tend to play an alpha character. I have much more fun on my alpha than I do my omegas. And they're not highly skilled, and they don't get injected into. They have to train normally or get skills and events and stuff. I don't even do the opportunities on them, so they're not even getting skill points that way. I have taken day 1 old characters out on rookie roams, and we've killed Vargr. We've killed Lokis, we've killed Tengus, we've killed Praxi, we have killed Nightmares, we've killed billions of ISK. So... Yep. I know, Henry. I know. We've all heard. But yeah, like I say, inherently I don't think they're a bad thing, but I do think players should probably slow down and think about what they're injecting into and learn how to pilot their ships. Being in the biggest, baddest ship isn't the end all and be all. I mean, you're also going to try to convince me, as someone who loves my frigates, that, a Titan is worth skilling into. We haven't done anything with low sec incursions yet. So then we'll get to what do you think is the most pressing issue in EVE today? I think the most pressing issue is the lack of communication between CCP and the players. There isn't a lot of goodwill at the moment. We had the great expansion with the faction warfare. We had the home fronts. We had the court projects. Everyone was hyped for this. Everyone was like, everyone I talked to at FanFest last year was hyped for what was coming. The Zarazak release, I don't think was bad. Obviously it brought in challenges Zarazak, but we got that locked down. But the Equinox expansion, I think that if CCP would have communicated and let players know what was going on beyond what they did, there would be a little bit more goodwill. Again, there's going to be some people that are never going to be happy. There's some people who will never be convinced. Reddit will just be angry until the day that the plug is pulled on the Reddit server. But I think for a large amount of players, I think that they would have given CCP the grace to fix it. But that's not how it went. So just like all the companies out there in the world, communication, need to keep working on communication. Maybe someday somebody will listen. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know if it's going to take another, mass unsubscribe run, burn Jita. I don't know. I really don't know what it's going to take. But CCP really, really needs to communicate a little bit better. So, oh yeah, they'll definitely be angry that the plug is pulled. They're going to go to the graves angry. So yeah, I think communication with players is EVE's biggest problem today. So, anybody out there have questions that they'd like me to answer that I haven't already answered with my 40 minutes of rambling? What I'm the most disappointed about with CCP is in other games, at least it used to be, the developers would come and hang out with players on Discord and actually interact. I know CCP is out there on a lot of Discords, but I don't see a whole lot of interaction. It's just like, they're there, they're watching, but they're not publicly coming out. I mean, I used to have CCP Convict come out into my rookie roams. He hasn't done that for a long time. So it used to be community was really out there and talking to players and, interacting and making players feel heard and special and all that stuff. But I haven't seen that for a very, very long time. What about solo players? I need a lot of time to connect with other people. EVE doesn't provide anything to keep weirdos like myself engaged until I finally found friends. This is a hard one because EVE is a MMO, massive multi-online player game. I do think that there is place for solo play. I was talking to a dev the other day, and we were just spitballing and talking about a broad range of new player issues and whatnot. And we had been talking about something or other. And I pivoted from, players engaging with players to, well, we also need some activities where players can go and spend, a quick hour or they can disengage. You have your neurospicy people that they want to engage, but they just don't have the bandwidth right now. So maybe going and mining, or maybe going running an Abyssal, or doing some other solo activity. It's still engaging with the game. It's still being among people. Maybe they say a word or two to their corporation or community while in game, or maybe just sit on comms listening to other people, and they participate that way. Do I think that we need a lot of it? Probably not a whole lot more than there is. We definitely don't want more Abyssals where it takes you out of space. So the engagement should always be there, but I wouldn't be opposed to having a few more, activities that you can do quickly, half hour, and then go on with life. What is my stance on high-sec ganking and griefing miners in high-sec? Okay, so first and foremost, ganking is a playstyle. I am not against ganking. What I am against is harassment. So if someone comes out of the blue and kills you while you're AFK mining, well, that's on you for AFK mining. You're supposed to have that situational awareness. You're supposed to engage with the game. You're not supposed to really take your eyes off of it. If you are AFK mining, there's a problem with the game because you're playing the game without playing the game. My problem with ganking and griefing is when people doing it do it to the same person over and over again. When the salt in local chat pushes that person into violating the toss, those I have problems with. I also have problems with repeatedly going after new players. Once you become old enough in the game, you should be able to use local threat XYZ, or you should be able to, set ganking corporations and alliances to red. You should be able to watch local, and you see that local spike, you should be on full alert and stuff like that. But new players, they have to learn this stuff. So, getting ganked usually is like, hey, something's up. Repeatedly getting ganked, I think that we have a problem there. I have some ideas, and I've talked to CCP a little bit about it. It shouldn't be eliminated from the game, but I do think that there should be a counterplay to ganking. That's what maddens me most about ganking in high sec, is there's no counterplay. I can run, I can dock up, I can leave. That's it. Let's see. Would you support push for a period of no expansion, but CCP dedicating dev time to straight up bugs and long-term balance UI issues? Hell freaking yes. A matter of fact, I believe that CSM19 has mentioned this, that we would absolutely love and support CCP doing this. And I do, again, Reddit will probably be pissed. There's gonna be people unhappy that they don't see, something new coming out in game. But I think the majority of the players would be overjoyed if they sat down and really fixed some of the bugs, completed things that are uncompleted, and kind of polished up the game a little bit. Let's pay off some of that technical debt and put the game in a little bit better place. Yeah, 100%. Have I stated my thoughts to nullsec changes to the latest updates? So, I am not a null player. I'm not a solve null player. I didn't get into the Skyhook rating either. I am a rookie roam, new player FC. So I take out new players and roam nullsec. But I feel really freaking sorry for what Null got. Null is not... Yeah, okay, so about the small thing, or the period to fix shit, Darkshines is also in here, CSM18. Yeah, like I say, I don't think that there's one of us that are going to go, no, we want to see something brand new. Yeah, let's fix our shit. Come on. But yeah, about nullsec, I really feel sorry for what landed. Now, ask any of us in 5 years what happened. I'm sure we'd be happy to tell you. I'm sure if you asked the Null FC or Null CSMs, they're going to be able to tell you a little bit more of their feelings. But yeah, I do think Null got like the short end of the stick. I feel really bad about it. It shouldn't have gone out that way. So why me? Why should you vote for me? And why is Eve important to me? You should vote for me if you believe in the things that I believe in. If you believe in the new player experience, and I'm not talking about just the tutorial, I'm talking about the entire experience. community and inclusion. I push pretty hard. It's kind of like one of those things where I'm not the most talkative person, but when I speak up, people tend to listen because, whatever I have to say is important. And I saw the power of this on my stint with the CSM. And why EVE is important to me, well, it's not so much about the game anymore. It's more about the community. Funny how that works. I don't get to log into the game and actually play all that much anymore. I'm either FCing or I'm playing EVE offline. I am working tirelessly behind the scenes to make EVE better for everybody else. I am making sure that my FCs and JFCs have the resources that they need to run their fleets. I'm making sure that people have the training that they need to run fleets. I'm making sure that our assets are where they need to be so people can run fleets. And I'm also giving a platform for other communities to be able to come in and run fleets. Player engagement is super, super important to me, and just the way the community bonds around EVE. It's absolutely amazing. I haven't quite seen this in any other MMO. EverQuest came close. I just dated myself, but I've never quite seen anything like that. So that's why EVE is important to me. And all, my 3,000 friends. I have people that when we get together in real life, it's just like, we've known each other for our whole entire lives and it's home. Let's see. Would this include updating mission agents, cosmos, etc.? I have tried pushing for an iteration across all of the old content because it sorely needs to be updated. They did it with the career missions, so they may not have added new things into the career missions, but they definitely, spruced up the UI and made it make sense a little bit more. They fixed a lot of bugs and whatnot, so they really should do this the same for missions. Cosmos was made at a different time, just like incursions. Where people were popping mom before, anyone could actually run incursions. Cosmos was made in this time where, you didn't have boxing, you didn't have input broadcasts. Not saying that that's what's going on, but that wasn't there. So I think that needs to be updated, and I have talked to the team involved with Cosmos, so it is on their radar. So yeah, absolutely. I would love to see that. Unfortunately, for these type of things, unless we go back to Ed's question about that expansion to fix things, it has to be shoved in between the cracks. And if the team starts falling behind, guess what the first thing that's going to get pushed out is going to be? It's frustrating. It's really super frustrating because I would love to see everything get polished up. And I honestly believe that the teams involved with this would too. Let's see. Yes, EVE Offline is an actual thing. So Kshal is in a corporation called Fun Inc. Fun Inc. is the holder of the MPSI calendar, so mpsi.rocks. We put on public PvP fleets for everybody. And I started FCing back 8 months into the game, and I'd already started thinking about making a feeder corp. Because this way I could go and take new players, I could train them up, and then send them on to the MPSI corps. My CEO was like, this is a lot of work. You're going to not be playing a whole lot of EVE if you do something like this. And it's just kind of like, yeah. And of course, in the first year of EVE Rookies, I was predominantly running the fleets, so I'm always in game and stuff like that. I want to think that I started actually playing EVE offline about 2.5 years into the game, or 2.5 years into EVE Rookies. So yeah, we pay our FCs. So I have a payroll sheet, just like in the real world. I take statistics. I have very meticulously detailed fleet statistics. So I track the people that come to our fleets, and I track how many fleets we've done. I do a lot of marketing. I troll a lot of social media to talk about new players, things that they're asking questions about, Eve rookies, our partners, and stuff like that. I also reach out to a lot of communities to see if they are interested in coming working with us. So yeah, I do a lot of Evolve flying. Yeah, and this is one of the thing about the Cosmos that we talked about. It was made for a different time. So is that really necessary anymore? Test server. So this is an interesting subject. I don't expect the test server to come back anytime soon. CCP has already said that, right? I do agree with their reasons. Again, ask me in 5 years. But I don't think it's the reasons that players think it is either. So, yeah. I don't expect them to come back. Yep. Yep. As Darkshine just said, this is where CC communication would be better. 100%. Absolutely agree. Yeah, because people have all their own wild theories on why, and it just is. That's all I can say, is it just is. Maybe someday they'll let you guys know. No comment. So, any other questions? Oh, for the up and coming CSMs. Yeah. You have to have some diplomacy. Don't. So in D&D, we have something called a dumb stat. For example, barbarians, their dumb stat is usually intelligence. For rogues, is usually strength, maybe even wizards too. Don't let intelligence be your dumb stat, and don't put all of your skill points into everything except for diplomacy. If you go in and you are demanding things, if you're long-winded, if you don't get to the point, CCP isn't going to take you seriously. So, learn how to speak, learn how to listen. Listening is just as important. And then come up with ways to be heard that isn't going in, beating your chest, and basically, demanding things. What is the meaning of life and everything in the universe? 42. I'm a nerd. What do you think? And like say, I think other advice would be I think I went over most of my advice when I was going over the 4 CSM questions that I put in. Realize that even if you're not a subject matter expert in something, you probably know something about whatever they're talking about. Don't sell yourself short. You know, a lot of times wormhole stuff came up after Mark left his Mark-sized hole in our hearts. None of us are wormhole experts, but we all know how they work. We know how the sites in there work, but we kept getting discounted because there wasn't a wormhole CSM. Same thing with, nullsec. I know how the ansiblixes work. I know how projection works. But sometimes I think people discount because, I'm the community builder. I'm the new bro CSM. So it's things like that. You know more than you think about, and you always have input into it. I don't know if I own more wormholes than Mark. What grade would you give the current CSM? To be honest, I would give the current CSM an A. I've heard some horror stories about past CSM, and I feel it was fairly well balanced. People need to realize that only 6 of the 12 positions were taken up by Null, so it was very, very varied. Everyone got along. We didn't spend time fighting about things. I think that we came to agreements on quite a few things. I can't really say that there's really any huge dissenters about important things. So, yeah, I've enjoyed this experience. I've really enjoyed this experience. But I kind of knew what I was getting into when I was coming in, so I didn't expect to be able to fix the world. What grade do I give CCP? I'm not going to give them an F, but I definitely think they're at a D- for the communication. And also, for all intents and purposes, I don't think that we had too many long ranting tirades to CCP. And yeah, Darkshines, I'm looking at you. You still have that place in my heart, don't worry. They were definitely well, I mean, someone had to fill Mark's space, right? Now, I do have. I can say that I do have some grievances with some of the CSM. And that was over the board game. We got the opportunity to play the new Eve board game. CCP had a copy, and CCP Convict was going to teach us how to play it and kind of referee. And then it was myself, Oz, Storm, and Satan that played. So I was Caldari. I got a really cool Tempest. I really like that Tempest. It was awesome. I cannot wait for my board game. But so everyone starts. It kind of starts out kind of like settlers. So it's kind of like you're building your towns and stuff. You're getting resources. So people start off with that. We get about halfway through, and nobody has gone into combat. So I'm bloodthirsty, and I'm like, okay, so what's gonna happen if I start attacking someone? So I want to think that I attacked Oz first. This started something. This really started something. So I'm out there, I'm attacking Oz, I'm gaining my resources through, conquering his faction. Satan jumps in. they gang up on me. So they kill me first. Or maybe it wasn't Tempest. I have the ship. Was it Varger? I can't remember. I'd have to go look at the ships again. But anyways, so yeah, Satan and Oz killed me off. Then they start combating each other. Freaking Storm Delay is over there winning, and no one's stopping him. No one can get over there anymore. They killed me off. I was on his border. And yeah, so Storm just snuck in. Maybe it was Gollum. Yeah, it might have been Gollum. But yeah, Storm just snuck in and won. So yeah. And I was talking to Oz, and he said that maybe he'll do an alliance with me this year. Against, our competitors. They don't have jump bridges in the board game. I think he expects that from me. I will have to say that I am super duper excited. The board game is supposed to ship in December, and I'm really excited to get it because I can finally get my friends to play Eve with me without them rolling their eyes and all that stuff. I am sure that that would not work out very well. There are very few board games that have become decent video games, and vice versa. Honestly, the last board game, besides the Eve one that I played, that was a video game first and went to board game, was Plague Inc. They did a really good job of putting the in-game or the computer game mechanics onto the board game. Yeah, there's no jump bridges or anything in the board game. I don't know, maybe there'll be expansions. Okay, so simple games like that are easy to do vice versa. But I'm talking about Warcraft, for example. Warcraft, I don't think translates very well back and forth. EverQuest, they didn't try to put it in a board game, but they tried to put it in a tabletop RPG. And they actually put the mana system, the regenerating mana, into the RPG. It was the most horrible mechanic ever that I immediately threw right out. I homebrewed that shit, before anyone could even ask about it. We're not going to talk about Vampire, okay? We're having a good stream here. Hashtag way too soon. Yeah, can you tell the Vampire the Masquerade player as well? Fun fact, I might actually run a one-shot of Vampire the Masquerade at FanFest. I'd be willing to bring it up. I would absolutely have no problem asking if we could have walk-in stations again. There's no harm in asking for something like that. The answer is probably going to be no, but I would ask. Cheers. Thank you so much, Dark Shines. Like, say, those two brain cells, they're not really communicating anymore. Okay, Razna. Yeah, the PI thing. I actually talked to somebody about that not long ago, and they were asking me if I did PI, and I told them that I rage quit PI. I still have my PI character with the PI ship and all the stuff that you need to start PI, hanging out in nullsec, NPC nullsec, because I got like 5 clicks in, decided that I'm not dedicating my life to this, fuck this shit, and I just logged off. I never logged into that character again. I believe the Eve portal was actually brought up at Summit. So, Eve, I don't know what they're going to do with it, but they do know that players would like a solution. I also want to think that copying and pasting your setups was mentioned in our quality of life session. Yeah, I've also seen 0 requests for the in game comms. I think some things are just, better not being brought back. So, PI on mobile. I'm laughing because some of the CSM candidates are talking about a mobile version of PI that you can play while you're on the toilet. I think that we would see a lot of Eve players, in the headlines with polio. Shitty job needs a shitty fix. Ah. Can you imagine households that only have one toilet? But yeah, no, PI definitely needs some love. I'm not the best person to advise it, but I can definitely tell CCP that I'm a player that dropped it like a hotcake because yeah, you're absolutely right, Harry. Life is too short. The passive income that I would get from PI isn't worth it to me. I think I'd rather sit in high sec mining an adventure with a civilian laser than think about PI anymore. Yeah, I can't even imagine living in one house. I would never get to go. No, Fluffy, I don't agree that most things aren't worth it unless you go out into null. I think that there is plenty of things that you can do. Okay, no, you're not going to generate the ISK that you can, dread ratting or capital ratting or whatever out in nullsec, even Ishtar ratting. You're not going to be able to do the stuff like in Pokfin, in high sec, but you can make a pretty good income. You just have to be realistic. If you want to make billions to plex your account, that's going to be a bit of a struggle. But if you want to make sure that you have, a couple hundred mil in your pocket to go out and blow up frigates on MPSI rooms or something like that, yeah, that's absolutely doable. You don't have to go out to nullsec for that. Remember that Fun and Eve isn't about ISK per hour, it's about fun per hour. So if you're having fun, then the ISK is secondary. It's consequential. That's what we tell people all the time when they come out for our Vanguard shield fleets, incursion shield fleets. They get upset because, first of all, we go over grid. So we often will have 14, 15, 16, even 20 people, which really lowers your income. And if they're all having a good time, but they only make, 60 mil an hour, is that a big deal? I guarantee 60 mil an hour is still going to be more than that, 30-day-old player has seen in 1 hour tick. And like I say, I do agree that missions definitely need some love, to be a little bit different, more engaging, and so on and so forth. And see, for I would never spend 120 hours just to get the implant for free. I would find something else that I could do easily to make the 120 mil that is enjoyable and just buy it. Are people actually doing level 5s? When I first started running, or I started FCing incursion fleets, I was doing that so much that I wasn't getting out into any PvP fleets, and pretty soon my wallet was pretty damn fat. But in PvP, I fly small things. I really, really love my assault frigates. I'm always down for a good Thrasher fleet or a Cormorant fleet. Put me in a Heron, put me in a Griffin, and life is good. My big ship that I fly is my Falcon. I mean, depending on the time of day and stuff, the fit that I fly could be anywhere from 180 mil to like 250 mil. And that's nothing. Especially since I only lose one every couple months. Um, so All Haven is raising loot table in T3 Cruiser Abyss a CSM thing, or is it insignificant and specific to an issue? This depends. Since right now you are the only person that is struggling with this, I wouldn't be likely to go to CCP about it. Of course, I already went and I asked on your behalf. They said it wasn't a problem. Now, if more people started coming to me, or if I noticed people talking about it on Reddit and other places that Eve players post, I definitely would notice, and then I would start asking questions. And I would gather that data. And then I would take that to CCP. And then, of course, knowing that you put a ticket in, I would also have other people put tickets in, give me the number, and then I would go and give them the data that I've collected. So that's usually where the CSM comes in on this type of thing. I could literally write a book on all the things that people have come to me for. And that's actually, Darkshine's asked me earlier, advice I could give to the future CSM. And another one that I would give is you're not a conduit of the player to CCP. If you think something is a good bet, meaning you believe that this is an issue and you would like to help bring it to CCP's attention, by all means. But there are definitely some things that you're going to be laughed right out of the room and they're not going to take you seriously anymore. Like, one issue I had was someone came to me and demanded that I tell CCP that they need to reverse the ECM back to how it was. And for those of you who are too new, ECM jamming was almost unbeatable. There was no counterplay. And then right before I started playing, they adjusted it so that the person that you are jamming can lock you up and engage you. Before you couldn't. And I fully believe in counterplay. And this person is all like gankers. He does not like high set gankers. He does not believe it's a valid gameplay. He does not want to see it in the game. All gankers must die, everything along that line. And I just asked him, so are you upset because gankers, there's no counterplay to ganking? He was like, well, yeah. So what do you think is going to happen if we put ECM back? There is no counterplay. You don't like it having no counterplay. Do you think other people are going to like having no counterplay? So it's kind of the same thing. And I absolutely was not going to take that to CCP.